Speedway Report is a production of ZTV. The NHRA ended their season and crowned their champions. Team orders came down at Team Penske and at Joe Gibbs Racing. And the asphalt modified pot is stirring for 2021. All this and more coming up. Welcome to Speedway Report. We are Monday, November the 2nd, 2020. From the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina, I'm Patrick Reynolds. Thank you for joining in to the fastest half hour in racing. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? Big reminder to you, as I do every week. Don't miss out in case you pass over a live podcast. Life can get in the way. I understand that. I don't hold it against you. The YouTube channel gets deposited right in your mailbox every single week. Our good friend Leo down in Brazil, he never misses an episode. He's on another continent. I figure the folks here in the United States, greater 48, ought to be able to handle that, especially my North Carolina pals. Anyway, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, YouTube, subscribe, love you, mean it. Let's hit up the Victory Lane lap and tell you who won what over the past week, and we kind of stretch it out into last week a little bit. Why? Well, you know that NASCAR Cup schedule thing, kind of a potential stock car series, could go somewhere someday. They raced in Fort Worth, Texas. Finally, Wednesday night, barely enough time to bring the haulers home, turn them around, send them up to Martinsville, Virginia. Last Wednesday, Kyle Busch finally won at Fort Worth, Texas. And last night in Martinsville, Chase Elliott was the winner on the paperclip half mile. Also, over the weekend on Saturday in the Xfinity cars at Martinsville, Harrison Burton took the checkered flag, and Grant Enfinger won Friday night in the NASCAR Truck Series at Martinsville. Thomas Warren, how are you, buddy? Good to see you tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Let's cross the pond, go to Formula One and Imola, Italy, where Lewis Hamilton was your winner. No surprise there. Incredible number here put up by Mercedes, their seventh consecutive Constructors' Championship in F1 for Mercedes. Out at the Corkscrew at Laguna Seca, IMSA held a big weekend there, rescheduled from earlier this year due to the coronavirus. It was won, air quotes, by Team Penske with Ricky Taylor and Helio Castroneves sharing the driving duties. We're going to touch on this a little bit today, too. Team orders prevalent in road racing as well as Martinsville. Let's finish this up here. In Las Vegas, Nevada, the NHRA Straightliners were out on the strip where they've crowned their season champions. In Top Fuel, Antron Brown was the winner of the event at Las Vegas. Steve Torrance is the 2020 Top Fuel champion. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan, he double-dipped. He won the race and the champion, as did Erica Enders in Pro Stock. She got the win and her fourth Pro Stock title. In a Pro Stock motorcycle, Angie Smith was your winner in Las Vegas, but her husband Matt clinched the season-long championship for the bikes. In a big short track race, the All-American 400 in Nashville, Tennessee yesterday was taken by Casey Roderick. Yes, I am old enough to remember the very first All-American 400 won by the late, great Butch Lindley in 1981. Well, this weekend gave us plenty to dissect and chat about. Where to begin? Well, you know where I'm going to wind up, so let's start somewhere else. Let's talk about my beloved modifieds. The asphalt cars, the ground pounders from the Northeast, New England-based. Well, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour schedule is forming, and there's a couple of big events. However, they also clash with some non-NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour Series events. What am I talking about? Let's get to it. Martinsville Speedway will hold a Modified Tour race as part of their April weekend in 2021. It will be on a Thursday, possibly the same weekend as the Icebreaker at Thompson. What's going on? Well, there potentially could be no NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour races at Thompson, and potentially the Tour-type modified races are going to take place just without a NASCAR sanction. This frees them up from the confines of the NASCAR Tour and what they can run on the oval. This often builds in some possibilities for conflicts, namely what I just said, the big return NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour to Martinsville, which is fantastic. However, running it where these guys are going to run up the road far up the road from Virginia to Connecticut almost overnight to run the icebreaker is a tough deal. Now, this brings me back to the days of Richie Evans and Jerry Cook. Oh, gosh, and Paul Radford and Ronnie Bouchard and Satch Worley and the Barnstormers up and down the East Coast, racing Virginia here in the Southeast. One day, then be up in New England or New York the next day. They did this a lot. So I grew up with that was the normal way to race. Now, in today's day and age, it's pretty rare to do that. It can be done, is done occasionally, but not scheduled as such. NASCAR likes to keep these big gaps week to week in between the tour. But the possibility of Thompson holding a tri-track modified style of tour racing where just common unsanctioned, but different series can compete, whether you got the ROC, the Valenti Modified Series, the Whelen Tour, what have you. Well, that kind of remains to be seen. Let's delve into this a little more. The Modifieds will also return to the Richmond Speedway in Virginia as part of the Cup weekend. That will be in September of 2021, which is pretty cool. Hang on, Ruth Ann and Jack, good to see you guys too, as I'm babbling about my modifieds here, because I want to talk a lot about this tonight. Good to have the modifieds back at Martinsville. Good to have them back at Richmond. However, these could conflict with other dates. What's the other date? Well, the big news that came out since we were on the air last week is the Thompson 300 is back. This race hasn't been run since 2005, and we've heard every lame excuse in the book as to why it has not been run. This is something NASCAR and Thompson, for whatever reason, could not get done. If some independent promoters can get it done, let's do it. And to heck with NASCAR. This looks like it's going to happen. The 300 will be back in 2021 at Thompson, but without a NASCAR sanction and not part of the tour. This throws into effect, again, the potential for conflicts and the major stars of the tour not participating. Why? Because it's not NASCAR sanctioned. There's a lot of car owners and teams that are like that. I don't know why, but I certainly hope I hope they'll participate if they can, but the conflict may or may not be there. What do we need? Well, we need the election of November 3rd, 2020 to be completed. The COVID-19 virus has been a path and a struggle for all of us this year, and much of our future will be dictated on the states of our individual governors. I've told you guys many times we won't drag politics into the show in my opinions nor your opinions. However, that is a fact that depending on who is the governor of what state will determine the plan for that state going forward when we battle COVID. It's just how it is. So I'm encouraging you to go out and vote tomorrow if you're watching us on the second live. November 3rd is our election. Please do not let this one pass you by. This is extremely important. Please go vote. This is going to determine many paths for many states, including short track and major league auto racing right here. It's a direct A to B effect of what's going to happen short track racing. So, good news. NASCAR Modifieds back at Richmond in April. Back at Martinsville in April, back at Richmond in September. The Thompson 300 is back, as well as the Icebreaker and World Series at Thompson. However, we could have some conflicts. Now, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour schedule has not been released yet. It's being piecemealed together. We're getting little references and signs of what it could and will or would look like, but a lot of it's going to hinge on the election November 3rd here in the U.S. So please go out and vote. Something that didn't get a vote, but was just dictatorship and orders, were team orders. No passing and passing orders. Let's talk about Team Penske first, and it happened at the IMSA event at Laguna Seca Raceway. I know my NASCAR water cooler folks want me to get to Joe Gibbs Racing. I will shortly. First of all, let's talk about the pass that did happen in sports car racing. Dane Cameron and Juan Pablo Montoya allowed, with Dane Cameron at the wheel, allowed their Team Penske teammate Ricky Taylor to go along for the win. As Elio Castroneves was the co-driver. Cameron was behind the wheel, allowed Taylor to go around. So now Taylor and Elio hold a 2-point lead in the driver's standings for the IMSA Series over Wayne Taylor Racing's Ryan Briscoe and Renger Vanderzende. They are heading into the 12 hours of Sebring here in a couple of weeks, and this was a dominant performance yesterday by Dane Cameron and Juan Pablo Montoya for Team Penske. Of the 119-lap race, they led around 104, 105 laps and allowed Taylor to go around with 2 laps to go to fight for this championship. And even at that, Action Express goes into the finale at Sebring in a couple of weeks. They're only 9 points out of the lead. So we've got the top 3 driver teams within 9 points and no playoff format in sight. How about that? Geez, real racing. Well, except for the team orders, which I'm not really fond of. But Team Penske, the word was in, and Cameron did allow Taylor to go by. I'm not happy with it. It's not popular with me. However, there's a lot less of an uproar in the sports car world than there was in the stock car world last night at Martinsville. We'll talk about that in a moment. I want to touch on this piece of comedy out of the Formula One world at Imola, Italy. It had been years and years since Formula One had raced in Imola. They raced at Monza every year in Italy, but they haven't been in Imola. Now, the last time previous to 2020 that the Formula One cars raced there on this circuit, Charles Leclerc was 8 years old. Max Verstappen was 8 years old. George Russell was 8 years old. Lando Norris was 6 years old. And Kimi Räikkönen actually finished 5th in that race. That tells you where the veteran is and the old-timers. Guys like me pull for guys like Kimi because, well, we've probably got a little bit more in common in the salt and pepper department in the hair as well as the thinning hairline. I thought it was interesting that it had been that long. We've got that much of an age gap. And I like to see that in auto racing where you have that much of an age gap where the young guns and the 40-year-olds are still duking it out of each other. Another young gun that sat in victory lane over the weekend was Harrison Burton. He is the youngest winner of 20 years and 22 days to win at Martinsville Speedway in the Xfinity Series. The record was held by his father, Jeff Burton. 23 years, 2 months, 24 days. So beat him by about 2.5 years. Good for Harrison Burton and good for Jeff Burton. I remember when Jeff was running late models. So, yeah, I'm closer to relating to Kimi Räikkönen than I am to Charles Leclerc. Even though I like all these guys, I'm a fan of them all. But, yeah, Father Time and the Experience Fair are giving me a whole lot to talk about. All right. NASCAR's championship, as far as air quotes and as far as I'm concerned, this playoff format is the biggest punchline in motorsports. Oh, my God, it's a total circus. And we're going to talk about the hypocrisy shortly. However, I will report the news. The top 4 in the trucks that are going to Phoenix this weekend for the winner-take-all race for the championship. Grant Enfinger, Brett Moffitt, Sheldon Creed, and rookie Zane Smith. The Xfinity cars will going to Phoenix. Your top 4 will be Justin Allgaier, Austin Cindric, Justin Haley, and Chase Briscoe will duke it out for Xfinity title. And the top 4 in Cup, who are they? It's, Hamlin, Logano, Chase Elliott, and one more. Help me out in the chat here. I can't remember who it is. I should have written it down, but I didn't. There were too many other stars. I can't, because it's playoffs. I just can't take it seriously. It's not a real championship. It's just not. Chase Elliott's pit stop penalty was a topic of discussion, and it was most people were offended by this by the ones that cannot read. Internet Twitter trolls that can't read. Chase Elliott's pit crew followed the NASCAR rulebook to a T. You are not allowed to have your feet hit the ground until your car is 1 pit stall away. We saw Chase Elliott's Jackman hit the ground when he was about 2 pit stalls away. The rulebook clearly states you can go back on or to the wall to reset and then come back out if you hit the ground too early. His crew member, the Jackman, did go back to the wall, verbatim, word for word, what the rule book says in NASCAR. You can whine, bitch, and complain and moan all you want if you don't like Chase Elliott. However, his crew member, the pit crew, Jackman in particular, performed the stop. He made an error, made a mistake. We all do it. He knew the rule and corrected it to the letter of how it is written in the NASCAR rulebook. It is simple as that. There's no judgment call here. There's no ball and strike call. It says to the wall. Not on, not both feet up, not on the other side. To the wall. His Jackman went back to the wall. No penalty. Besides, it was a self-serving penalty anyway. He came in with the lead and left in 5th. It was a bad pit stop. He had a penalty. It was right there. But by the letter of the rule book, it was there. Now, Eric Jones not passing Denny Hamlin. Can we say hypocrisy? Absolutely. We can hear clearly over the radio that Eric Jones is told to not pass Denny Hamlin because the points were tight in the top 4 to get who is into Phoenix in the final round versus who wasn't. Some guys were driving their tails off, just couldn't get there. Denny Hamlin was so close, just a point or two away either way, and Eric Jones was up behind him, and he heard over the radio, Jones, don't pass Denny Hamlin. So Jones did not pass Denny Hamlin, even though Eric Jones was fired by JGR and only has, the one more race at Phoenix to go back. Then he's driving for Richard Petty next year. However, you don't want that kind of reputation or stigma in the garage area throughout the circuit. You want to be known as a team player, loyalist, racing for your team. Will still take one for the team and be a teammate through the end. You don't want the reputation. So I understand why Jones is doing it. He was told over the radio not to do it. Now, here's where we go, or the 100% rule, which is another dumb rule that NASCAR has, but we've got a 100% rule, which you need to abide by, to that you don't artificially manipulate the race. Can we see the hypocrisy here of the 100% rule so we don't artificially manipulate the race? Yet NASCAR has their playoff system in which they artificially manipulate a champion each and every year. Now, Jones could argue that, he was 100% performing at 100% because he was working for his same team, Joe Gibbs Racing, to try to get to them to the championship. Isn't that trying 100% to get your team to the title race at Phoenix? NASCAR has so many rules, like the microscopic laser beam measurements of inspection. They constantly cause their own problems. This 100% rule, it came from playoffs and the chase and teammates and things like this. Their rules create their own problems with this. Jones followed team orders, and you could interpret that he was racing at 100% to allow his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate to make it to Phoenix. Yet here we are discussing how Jones artificially manipulated the race, yet Kevin Harvick, who has 9 wins, does not go to the championship 4, and Matt Kenseth, who had 1 win in 2003, clinched the title with 2 races to go. Can you see how stupid these playoffs are? No system is perfect. No system is going to make everybody happy. But when Matt Kenseth was clinching a championship with a few races left, the title was legitimate. It was honest. He whooped their tail, and he deserved the title that year. This same system that allowed Matt Kenseth to clinch with only 1 victory and a couple races remaining is also the exact same system that gave us the beauty of the 1992 season. Brian France has gone on record so many times saying, and I've gone on record so many times criticizing Brian France, of Game 7 moments. The reason Game 7 moments happen and are so special is because they don't happen all the time. They rarely happen. They're tough to happen. Sometimes a World Series is 4 or 5 games and it's over. That's sports. You can't just demand a 7th game in a World Series and artificially manipulate your rules to get the 7th game every year in the World Series. We've done that with NASCAR. Yet we have a 100% rule that prohibits teams from artificially manipulating a race. I don't know which way is up in this sport. I've heard, Mike Bagley say over and over again on Sirius NASCAR radio, hey, this ain't your father's NASCAR anymore. You're right. It's not my father's NASCAR anymore. And I have very little interest in it. We'll talk about it. We'll criticize it. It gives us something to jabber about here on Monday. But if you think I'm there every week in front of the TV with must-see TV, no, sir. No, this is not my father's NASCAR, and I wish, again, I will keep pounding this drum, that they will go back to the Bob Latford system. We sign in Daytona in February, and we start counting points to a championship. The one with the most points at the end of the season wins. It's that simple. Let's let sports play out and keep that artificial manipulation out of it, too. You're a victim of your own rule book, NASCAR. You reap what you sow. This week's Racer of the Week, I'm staying away from folks that turn left. None of you get my Racer of the Week this week. None of you. I don't care. I'm going for someone that goes straight. Someone that's been a guest on this show, and someone that's been a friend to us, and someone that's given great interviews and good written stories to our website. She won her 4th NHRA Pro Stock Championship yesterday in Las Vegas. Erica Enders is the Speedway Report Racer of the Week. Everybody, in between our broadcasts, keep up on our past shows of SpeedwayReport.com. We've got all these shows archived there. Hook up with us on social media. First of all, on Facebook at Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds and at the Racers Reunion Facebook page. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Report and at Speedway Pat. And we are at racersreunion.com in the forum. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as I beat you over the head with that at the start of the show. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook Live feed that joined us for the November 3rd broadcast. We'll catch up to you all shortly. And I want to thank all of our military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, you take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and you can follow me on Twitter at Speedway Pat. Now, on the Drag Racing List Facebook page is Drag List Live coming up here in about 6 minutes. Join Bill Pratt and John Balkman at the top of the hour. Head over to Drag Racing List right here on Facebook. Now, I'll be back here live on Monday, November the 9th, and we will talk about NASCAR's phony championship in Phoenix. We'll talk about the World of Outlaws in Charlotte and the latest news, and not fake news, in the world of auto racing. Thank you all for watching. You take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Please, if you have not already, vote. Veterans have perished so we can have this privilege. Please go vote. I'll see you all next week.